Afternoon. My name is Sheila Lamb, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 27 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one advising services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, Mobile Apps, How to Plan, Execute, and Launch, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network. Please mark your calendars for our next webinar in our digital bootcamp series, Future-Proofing Your Business Web 3.0, NFTs, and Blockchain, happening on May 18th at 1 p.m. We are recording today's presentation, and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the large number of participants, everyone's microphone is muted, but if you have questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box. We have also enabled the live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your own meeting controls. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today's session, Cameron Nelson, Chief Digital Advisor for the Central Virginia SBDC. Cameron has over 18 years of experience in technology and is a senior tech consultant in Silicon Valley, helping Fortune 500 companies improve their digital marketing and e-commerce. At the same time, he also founded several tech companies, including a software as a service website for tree preservation and a blockchain platform for nonprofits. Cameron is accomplished in language, culture, has an MBA and MA. He believes new technology products have the ability to help shape our world for the better. Please join me in welcoming Cameron Nelson.
Thanks for the introduction, and hello everybody. Welcome to Mobile Apps, How to Plan, Execute, and Launch. Today we're going to be talking about how to go about creating a mobile app for your business, if it's the right path for you, how it can complement your existing website, and how it can improve your digital strategy to acquire more customers and essentially drive revenue growth. This is going to be covering a lot of different topics, and I encourage you all to keep your questions to the end, where we'll have about 20 minutes to answer your questions. So I hope you all think of a couple that you'd like to ask, because I look forward to answering your specific questions at the end of this presentation. So with that, let's jump right into it. The first question that I want to pose to you is, should your small business be considering developing a mobile app? Because a mobile app is not for every business, and there's a specific use cases where it'll be more beneficial than others. You know, one of the main concerns is that the mobile app market, which is the iOS store and the Android store, they're very crowded. You know, the Apple store, which is iOS, has about 2.2 million apps. And the Android/Google store has 3.5 million and growing. So just keep in mind, it's a crowded space you're going to be entering. So it's essential to have the right strategy and marketing plan for your mobile app if it's going to be successful. A few key questions you should ask yourself now, if you haven't already, is, are you ready to invest a sizable amount of money in developing your mobile app? And now I'm sure a question that comes up is how much money? It really depends a lot on what the app's going to do, what kind of features it's going to have. In general, with the mobile apps I've helped develop for small businesses in Virginia, the cheapest ones might be around $1,000 to $1,500 for a simple app. And I've also worked on apps that cost $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. So it can range widely. And also, do you want to dedicate a large amount of your time to oversee the creation of a mobile app? A business owner like yourself has a lot of priorities and a lot of things you need to do to make your business successful. Please don't go into developing a mobile app or hiring someone to develop the app with the expectation it won't take much of your time. It will take quite a bit of your time. And one of the biggest reasons that mobile app projects fail is that the creator, such as yourself with the idea, doesn't allocate sufficient time to, go through the process with the developer and make sure it's done right. So if that didn't scare you away, I hope that you're still interested. I think there's a lot of advantages here for mobile apps. First, mobile apps, they're being used by billions of people around the world. And in fact, as far as businesses and startups go, mobile apps is the fastest growing sector of revenue growth. So more than launching a website, obviously more than launching a brick and mortar store, mobile apps are the largest driver of business revenue growth. Mobile apps also provide an opportunity to engage with your customers. There's many ways you can get feedback through the app, and it's just a great way to tweak your product and your service by having the app out there. Also, they provide an opportunity to increase your customers and your sales. And because you'll be listed in one or both of the app stores, you will be presented as a search result more often, and you'll have the opportunity then to get new customers. There's several ways to create mobile apps. You don't just have to go with one platform or one type of development. There's lots of choices, which sometimes can be a bit overwhelming, but it's an advantage in the sense that you can get right down to what's going to work best for you. And also you have greater profit potential versus other business models with high overhead. So if you're selling an app and monetizing an app, you're going to have some overhead, you're going to have some operational costs, but they're quite a bit less than traditional business models. So those are some of the key advantages. Again, some of the cautions are, first, it can be challenging because of the complexity of developing an app and the scope, meaning what you want the app to do, and also the amount of time it takes. Sometimes these are underestimated by first-time business owners creating an app for the first time. Secondly, unexpected issues can and often do come up in first-time creators just because you're not quite familiar with the process, so you'll be learning a lot as you work with the developer. You don't want to launch an app that fails to come up with a new innovative idea or solution to a problem. If you search the App Store for the kind of app you're thinking of launching, I'm sure you're going to find apps that do something similar. So you've got to work really hard at what's going to be unique about your offering to make sure that you're going to have a good chance of success. The next caution is don't jump into this if your business or your personal finances, you don't have enough funds to finish the app. So we'll talk a little bit about the best approach to getting quotes from developers and how to do that the right way. But I would always buffer in 10 or 20% extra, because you never know if there's a great idea that you think of during the development process that you feel like really needs to be in the app, but it wasn't budgeted for at the beginning. And that almost always happens, especially with first-time developers or app creators like yourself. So I would budget in a little bit of a buffer. And lastly, hiring the wrong development team. That's really important. I've seen projects fail just because the development team was slow, too expensive, incompetent, lots of different reasons. And it's really sad to see the money and the time kind of be wasted there. And so I'll talk a little bit about how you find the right development team for your app. So the next thing we need to discuss here is that which store or which platform do you want to launch your app on? It's completely fine to launch an app on both stores. There are cost-saving measures that can happen if you develop one app and launch it on both stores at the same time. But overall, it will be cheaper if you just focus on one store or the other. So some of the criteria you should consider are, the quality and the quantity of the apps on the platform, which is either Android, which is Google, or Apple, which is the iOS store. The platform size, how big is it? What's the development process and complexity like? What is the approval process like for the app? Because let's just say some apps are harder to get approved than others. I was working with last year a CBD or kind of medicinal marijuana company, and they could not get an app approved because of the industry they're in. So the approval process can be a roadblock depending on what you're doing. And lastly, the cost considerations for the overall cost of development. So Android and Apple, they have some pretty big differences. Now, the first one is the platform that they're built on. Android's built on the Java platform, which is widely used, open source, and Apple is built on the Swift platform, which is something they created especially for Apple, the iOS store and Apple phones like the iPhone. Now, when you look at the market share, the Android store has about 87%, whereas Apple has only 13%. Now, remember, this is globally. In some countries, like India, and a lot of developing areas like Latin America and Africa, almost all use Android phones. So the market share is very heavy in those areas, whereas in the US, it's about even. It's more 50-50. So depending on where your target market is, it might make more sense to go with one platform over the other for that reason. The development complexity is also different. In general, it takes a little bit more time to develop an app on Java and a little bit less time to develop an app on Swift for Apple. The approval process for Android is quite a bit shorter and simpler, meaning they just don't do as many checks. And you might see in the news, I mean, I sure have, that there have been bugs or exploits found in apps on the Android store. And the reason is because they just don't do the rigorous of a testing process, which honestly, if you're a user, that's a bad thing. But if you're an app developer or someone like yourself who's going to develop an app for your business, it's a good thing because they're not going to poke too deeply into what your app does. So it's going to be easier approval. The Apple review process can take a lot longer. It can take months, and sometimes you won't get approved. And so it can be quite frustrating. So you just need to know that is a difference going in. The development cost for Android can be a little bit more than iOS. And in general, Apple can be slightly less. And again, the demographics are skewed towards Android is more in developing countries and even in the US and lower income groups, whereas Apple is generally in higher income groups. There's also a fee to launch an app on the store. Android charges the one-time fee of just $25, which is like for the lifetime of your business's app. And the Apple Store charges $100 per year to have an app on the store. So now that we've talked about the two platforms, hopefully you have some idea of which platform or both would be the best for your app. Now I want to talk about the 8 key steps that are essential when developing your app. And each one of these we're going to dive into in more detail. So as an overview, the step number 1 you need to focus on is your market research. And this really does need to come first before you consider doing anything else with your app. Think of your target audience and their needs when making your app. An app's only going to be as useful and do as well as the value it provides to a problem that's being solved. And the best startups are those, or the best businesses or startups making an app are those who are going to get feedback about the app idea. So this would involve having some phone conversations or in-person chats, kind of do some interviews, gather some data. Are people interested in this type of an app? I would do a couple dozen of these at a minimum before you consider spending any money developing an app. The second step is scoping out the app. This essentially means creating a list of the features that the app will do. A feature can be everything from the user will create a user login and a password, and that'll be stored in a database. So that's a feature. If you want the app to have video content, that would be a feature. So anything the app will essentially do will be a feature that needs to be defined very specifically before you talk to a developer or hire a developer, so you can make sure that everything's very clear. You're going to also in this step identify critical features or those that you feel like are the core function of the app, and also some that would be nice to have, but depending on the budget you have, you might decide to hold off on those. So this is called defining the minimum viable product. And oftentimes you'll have more aspirations than you can achieve with your budget. This is very common. So you will pick and choose which features are going to be in the minimum viable product, which is essentially your first version of the app. And then you can assume that you'll have a plan when you start making revenue from the app, or when your business revenue supports it, you can start developing those other features and updating the app. Step number 3 is once you have your feature list for your MVP, your minimum viable product, you'll find a developer. There's lots of places to find developers. There's freelance websites like Upwork.com and Fiverr.com. I think the SBDC and the list of developer contacts I have and other advisors here have is very beneficial. So you can contact us for some contacts. I would definitely get 2 to 3 quotes. And you can also compare local Virginia developers versus offshore developer options, which can be in India or Europe or China. And you can read reviews and look at portfolios of the developer apps to make sure that it's of the quality that you expect. I would definitely not move forward with a developer until you've talked to several, until you find one that you're most comfortable with and also gives you a price in your budget. Step number 4 is the business planning and financial planning. So you'll need to then decide, well, your business has an income and you have an expense projection from the developer for the app. So you're going to have to decide how much you're going to invest. You know, what kind of return on your investment are you going to get over what time frame? So, really dig into the financial aspects. At this point, it's kind of a go, no go decision. You need to decide if you're going to hire the developer sign a contract, pay them money, and start working on the app. You might decide that looking at all the factors, it's not worth it. And at least, if you get to step 4, you haven't spent money yet. So that's kind of the breaking point here. You can also start looking at, and you should look at the revenue model for the app. So if the app is part of your business, if the app is going to earn revenue on its own, is that because it's something people buy in the App Store? It's a simple revenue model. There's other revenue models which we'll talk about. So determining your revenue model here is essential to understand your return on investment. Step number 5 is really fine-tuning your marketing approach. So you've already done some market research in step number 1. Now you're going to identify target consumers and build what's called buyer personas. This is just kind of a general look at a typical customer to understand what they need and how to message them in your marketing. Are they on Facebook? Are they on TikTok or YouTube? Are they in farmers markets, locally? Identify where to reach them, and you can build your marketing message to answer their wants and their needs with your app. The next step is building a prototype. So you will now be working with a developer you've picked. You will have paid them some money, generally as a deposit to get started, and pay them the rest of the fee over a couple of milestones throughout the app development. You'll be testing the app. You'll be reviewing the app with them, sometimes on a daily basis, sometimes once or twice a week. And it'll generally be taking at least a couple hours of your time each week at a very minimum. You'll also, in addition to testing the app yourself, you'll want to have a group of users to be kind of beta testers along with you so you can get their feedback. Because trust me, you're not going to find all of the little issues or bugs, either big or small, by yourself. You'll want as many people helping you with that as possible. And of course, good developers will do a lot of this with you and for you, but you can never rely on them completely. And that's a mistake I've seen people make sometimes. You want to have a keen eye on quality control to make sure your money is well spent on this app. The next step is, once you've built your MVP, also sometimes called a prototype, you can consider this this finished MVP as your version 1. So you're ready to launch the app. You can do a beta test. And so a closed beta test and open beta test are 2 different types. And we'll talk about how they differ and why they might be useful in that section. And lastly is promoting the app. So you've gathered your leads, you've interviewed people, you've done market research. Now you're going to launch your ad campaigns. You're going to post on social media. You're going to go to events, whatever you've determined as your strategy. And this is your main goal going forward, is promoting the app. As the creator of the app, you need to be out there promoting it, however you determine is best. And essentially, step 8 is what you do ongoing for months or for years throughout the life of the app as you grow it and grow its users to make more revenue. So let's dive into step 1, market research. A great quote from a businessman I read recently says, "Find a big problem that's just going to get worse and fix it." I forget who said it. It might have been Richard Branson, might have been Elon Musk. But when I read it, I thought that's perfect, because your app does need to be looking for a problem that's hopefully growing, and you're going to fix it in a unique and innovative way. So, you can do this by conducting market research. Good step 1 is to interview people. So speaking with people in every part of your target market segment, identifying their problems, their needs, and so it'll give you ideas of how your app can solve it. You're going to collect data, which can be in the form, you can put it in a spreadsheet if you'd like, you can put it in a Word doc. A lot of startups just use a Google Doc and keep tabs of their interview notes, but you need to keep a focus on what data you're trying to collect to actually make it useful. Too much data you end up with is just going to give you more feedback than you can act on, and it might kind of dilute your attention. So focus on solving a specific problem or problems. You can send out surveys, and you can try sites like Typeform, SurveyMonkey, or Google Forms, which are linked here in the text. And this whole presentation will be sent out to you after this meeting, so you don't need to write these down, but you can click on them when you get the presentation. So using a form like this will make the data collection simple and instantaneous for you as you enter the answers to survey questions, either manually yourself, if you talk to somebody, or send them the link and they can fill it out themselves. And the last step is always say thank you whenever somebody gives you feedback, and stay in touch, because a lot of The people you interview, you hope will become your early users, maybe some beta testers, or some of your first paid users. And then the app will spread by word of mouth. So if it's a good idea, your initial group of people will be excited to use it and hopefully to talk about it. Now, the next step is to scope the app and determine the features that it should have to arrive at your minimum viable product. So the minimum viable product has some benefits. It'll help you focus on building the core app first and not kind of waste your initial time and money on fringe things the app could do that aren't essential. And you'll learn what's essential through the interviews. It's also an early opportunity to test the app as it's being built. You're going to use this time to gather feedback and kind of validate that it's actually solving a problem that you've identified in the market. And of course, it takes less time and cost to develop an app with fewer features than, say, all the features you could ever want. Now, the diagram on the left shows graphically how this kind of works. A minimum viable product isn't going to say, okay, let's take the functionality of the app and make that 100% and kind of ignore the reliability, usability, and emotional design or the interface. So that's not the right approach. The right approach is to take a sliver of all of the elements that goes into building an app. And so you're going to have a little bit of each one to make a product that works, but it's not a fully featured product on any of these areas. So another way to illustrate this concept is with this image. So at the top image there's a process here, some entrepreneurs going through, and they're trying to build like a vehicle that moves people. And so you can see the end state is a car, but at the top, they start with like a wheel and then two wheels, make a skateboard, half a car, and then a full car. Okay, so in this model, that is the wrong way to think about it. Now, the bottom example shows that they first start with something basic that rolls, and they improve it a little bit by putting, like a handlebar on it. Now it's a scooter. And then they improve it a bit more, make it into a bike, make it into a motorcycle, make it into a car. So you can see how the bottom model makes a whole lot more sense. And you need to think about this when you're building and investing your money in an MVP and not something like the top model. Now, the next step is choosing your development team or your independent developer, if it's an individual. So there's some considerations here. I've broken them down among 5 categories, and this is based on working with 50 or 60 businesses creating mobile apps. You can hire US-based developers, or you can hire offshore developers. And this is one of the first things you'll need to decide on. So quality. The quality with US-based and offshore-based is generally very, very similar. This is because writing code and writing apps is very much like writing mathematical formulas, and folks here in the US can do it just as well as people in India, Eastern Europe, China. So the end quality is usually very, very similar. Communication is going to be better in the US. They're closer in time zone. They're English native, that's a plus. And also culturally closer to Virginia. So it's just easier to communicate. India, China, and Eastern Europe, English might not be the primary language. They'll be in a very different time zone. It can work well, but you do need to understand there'll be some communication challenges to overcome. Usually they're not hard to overcome, but there are going to exist. And so you're going to have a little bit better communication US based. The time to develop an app is basically the same between either option. The cost is going to be always higher in the US. Generally speaking, $100 to $150 an hour for app development is common. $100 an hour if you found a freelancer on a website like Fiverr or Upwork who has low to mid-level experience, and $150 an hour for maybe a small firm with several people who have a lot more experience. So that's the cost you're looking at here. And then offshore typically is going to be about 1/4 of that cost. So as low as $25 to $35 an hour for the development. So significantly cheaper offshore. And the last one is the long-term commitment of the development team to you and to the app. So once you launch your app, your MVP, this is version 1, but you obviously have other plans with it. And so you want them to stay involved, stay around if you need help. And everybody's happy to do that in my experience. So no matter if you go with US or offshore, they are happy to be there in a month, 3 months, 6 months to make tweaks and updates to the app for you. Now, the next part is your app business plan. There are several revenue models here we can discuss, and these are generally speaking the most widely used app revenue models on the stores. And you can be creative and you can come up with your own as well. The first one is in-app advertising. This is obviously very common. We've all seen this when you have a banner of some sort of a ad in your app. It can make your apps free to use and you can still get revenue, but it can be annoying, especially if overused. The second model is in-app purchases. You'll lock out some features to free users, and then they have to unlock them by essentially buying them, which can be a one-time fee or can be an ongoing fee. Now, the app stores both charge around 30% of any revenue you make through this model. So just keep that in mind. The next model is a subscription model. And this would be if you charge monthly or annually for access to the app. It's good because it gives you a consistent cash flow compared to some others, but it's not really suitable for all apps because it just depends on your business model and what the app is doing, what the problem is that it's solving. The next model is freemium. Its pro is that it has no barriers to new customers using the app, but you are going to, after a time, lock out some features. So you might give them 30-day trial or 5-day trial. And then some things will become unavailable until they pay. So it can be difficult to determine that time frame of when things get locked out and what should be made free versus paid in the first place. So it can be a challenge there, but it's similar to the in-app purchases in a way. The next is paid apps. This is obviously somebody just buys your app. It is not free upfront. They have to buy it. So every time somebody uses it, they're going to be paying you. It's predictable revenue earned in advance. You pay 30% of all sales to the app stores. But again, there's so much competition on the stores that if there's 10 apps that essentially say they do the same thing, and some are free and some are for paid, most people gravitate towards the free ones. And so if you're a paid app, it can be a bit challenging there to stand out. And the last one is a sponsorship. So this can be really useful for your app to make money no matter what kind of business you run. But essentially, this requires a large user base using your app for your to make much money for you. So if you have an app with few users, no sponsor is going to want to be paying you. It's just about how many users use the app. So if you get up into the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of users, sure, having a sponsored app where you essentially will, plug first the company that sponsors you in the app would make sense. So these are the main app revenue models. And again, you're not stuck to any one of these necessarily. You can use your creativity and imagination in monetizing the app, how it makes the most sense for you. And the next area is marketing your app. There's 3 main factors that go into marketing the app. The first one is to identify your target customers and to build some buyer personas. So this is when you look at who your customers are and where they're looking for information about solving their problem. And I gave some examples before, maybe on Facebook or TikTok or YouTube, or maybe they're in a, physically going somewhere in a community. So these are places where they're looking for information where you can advertise. And you can break this up into different types of segments or different types of customers. And how many segments you would have is completely dependent on the type of business you're running. The second factor is you want to determine your customers' wants and needs. So this can be done through interviews and research, and you want to start to formulate a message that'll speak to them about solving their problems and their needs. And also, of course, get feedback from trusted friends and potential customers. One problem with talking to, let's say, close family or close friends is, in my experience and the experience of other startups, that they're hesitant to give negative feedback. And at this point, what you really need is some negative feedback, somebody to say, look, this isn't a good idea. So if all you do is surround yourself with people who are going to agree with your ideas, it's going to lead you down a road where you don't have a very effective marketing message. So you want to have some more critical viewpoints in there as well. And third, you want to build your strategy now that you have done the other steps to reach your customers. Social media, paid ads, traditional advertising, these are all ways to reach customers. And of course, some of the best marketing strategies are those that do unexpected things. So don't feel constrained to any one type of marketing activity, but really feel out what you think would be best for your business. So the next step is to build a prototype. So this is essentially what the app development process will be like for you as the creator of the app, working with your development team. You'll be looking at a lot of wireframes, and sometimes the developer will, well, almost always, if you want, they will make wireframes for you and then get your approval. And you can see the wireframes look something like this image here. They'll be usually starting at the home screen and showing, generally speaking, how the layout is, what buttons go to what other screen. So here we have an agenda screen, a conference screen, a review screen, and kind of what buttons link to where. Now, some people like to make wireframes themselves, which I think is great because it gives you an idea to throw out some bad ideas and incorporate feedback you've gotten. And also, if you present wireframes to developers, there's a much clearer path for them to follow, as opposed to kind of having to help you make the wireframes. It'll take more time and cost more money of their time. So you can use any of these great free wireframing tools, Just in Mind, Mockflow, and Adobe XD. And again, these are linked here in the presentation, so you can just click on this link when you get it. I encourage you to check these out. And if you want to make your wireframes yourself, you can pretty easily do it in these apps, on these websites. So an essential part of this step is incorporating user feedback. And some places to get user feedback that maybe you haven't thought of are a website for the app. So if you launch a website, maybe your business has a website or you plan on making a new one, you can have a contact form and ways for people to reach out to you with questions, comments, or feedback. You can also consider creating a community on Slack or Discord, which are chat-based platforms. And you can send out short surveys like we talked about, asking people specific questions. And you can have an in-app feedback reporting option. I think it's also good to at least have some social media pages set up. And if your business already has these, great. You can, if you want to talk about your upcoming app, solicit some feedback, see how people think of the screenshots or the wireframes. And some platforms you should consider for this are Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So now that you're ready to launch your app, you have the option to take what I consider is kind of an optional step, but sometimes very useful one, which would be to have a beta test, which will allow you to launch an app and have people use it either for free or paid. It's up to you. But without the expectation that everything's going to be working 100%. And so this can be useful to just temper expectations a bit, especially if you know there's some features that are kind of rough or haven't really been tested yet. You can say it's a beta test so people don't think, oh, everything's going to be fine when it might not be. So there's two types of beta tests. First, we'll talk about an open beta test. This is one that can that can incorporate anybody who is essentially, in the populace. They can find your app on the App Store, and it can be labeled as a beta. And it can serve the purpose of demonstrating your product to potential customers and also getting testing among a very wide user base. And this is likely to bring out some obscure and hard to find errors that will be good to fix. On the other hand, you can do a closed beta test, which is more private, and you'll generally send a link to use the app to a select number of people. So you will invite people individually, and this can be good if it's not really ready for everybody to be used, either because there's known bugs or things like documentation or vital features are missing, but you do want other people to be using it. You can do a closed beta test. So both of these methods, the main purpose is to get early feedback and fix some bugs for the kind of official mainstream launch, so you don't stumble at the launch. So, launching the app is just a matter of clicking a couple of buttons. Usually your developer does that once you've given approval. So you've launched the app and now it's time to promote it. So there's four main areas where promoting the app you're going to, be the most effective here. The first one is your website. So having a website either for your business, if the app is tied closely to the business, or if you don't really have a business and this is kind of a new app idea, having a website just for the app. So it gives the app more legitimacy to have its own website. The iOS and Android stores will link to your website if you have one. So it's just a good way for customers to do some more research on the company and the app and kind of give them a more sense of security and legitimacy. Again, like I mentioned, all the time there are stories of apps being found that have malware and were installed by hundreds of millions of people around the world and all these things. So sure, there's a sense of hesitancy among people for installing a brand new app. I think more every year. So you want to do everything you can to prove that you're a reputable, legitimate company. The next option for marketing is social media. So again, using Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, creating your profiles there and having just a simple presence goes a long way to show that you put in the time and the effort to do that. You can post there, post updates, post questions, post surveys. You don't want to spam your channel with too many things, but providing useful information like any good business social media account should do, but doing it with your app in mind can be a good way to promote it. And also paid ads are a good way to interest more people in your app. You can run a paid ad on generally Facebook or Google, which are the two biggest ad platforms. And this will allow you to get new users who have no previous connection with your company and with your social media pages to learn about you. And you pay a small amount every time somebody clicks on your ad to visit the app website. Another form of app promotion is the press release. And this is a more traditional press release, but you can put out a press release. Networking with people in your community, influencers, can be a good way to get the word out. Some people have done a launch party, which is either can be physical or virtual, and inviting people like local media. So this is a great way to publicly announce the app. And the last thing I'll talk about is the influencer and celebrity endorsements. So, if somebody in your network or your, extended network is an influencer in the area of your app, connecting with them, letting them know, hope maybe they're an early user, they like the app, they'll go out and promote the app. And because of their influence, it can be a great boost to your early users. And depending on your app model, some apps doesn't matter if your users trickle in very steadily or and others, they require a large amount of users right at the beginning, like some sort of a marketplace or a matchmaking service. So having an influencer or celebrity endorsement, even if you do end up paying them for their work, can be a very good investment and a way to promote your app. So that wraps up the formal part of the presentation. I look forward to answering your questions in about the next 15 or 20 minutes. And I hope that everybody found this valuable. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. That was excellent information. As you said, these slides are going to go out, so hopefully no one sat down, took notes, because that was a lot to cover. So let's see, it looks like we had one question just pop up. How do you ensure that your app idea will not be stolen by the developer? How do you protect yourself on this, especially from those in offshore areas? Does signing an NDA help, and where are the forms to use, especially if dealing with offshore developers?
That's a great question. So, the legality of it. The main thing to do is to obviously hire a developer, whether it's an individual or firm that is reputable, that is trustworthy. So reading reviews on, any freelancer website is going to have a lot of reviews from other people who've hired them. So that's the first place I would look. And secondly, looking at other pieces of feedback that have been given on the developers. So sometimes they'll have some testimonials on their website, but it's more often better to find reviews on an independent third-party website. So if you've done your due diligence, you're comfortable hiring a developer because of the reviews you've read, you can, of course, always have them sign an NDA. I'm not a lawyer, so this isn't really legal advice, but from my experience, US firms are more strongly bound to what an NDA says, whereas a firm in China, India, or Eastern Europe, um, it would be much harder to prosecute them in some sort of international court, right? So if security and privacy is your main concern, then probably US has an advantage there, just because legally speaking, it's more clear, how an NDA protects you. But I've worked with firms mostly in India on dozens and dozens of projects. We've of course never had any problems there, but they've also been very happy to sign NDAs and to go through that process. So those are the main ways that you can protect yourself from that situation.
Great. So have you used Test Fairy, and what are your thoughts on the testing platform?
So I'm not familiar with Test Fairy particularly. There's the testing, kind of how you will test the app during the development process. It is determined a lot by the developer you hire and what they use, because lots of different platforms out there for them to develop on and to provide you a means of testing and giving feedback. So there's dozens of different options. They're going to have their preference. And so one of the things you could ask when you interview them, if you like Test Fairy specifically, you could say, look, is this something you've ever used? Or would you consider using it, because I prefer to interact using that platform, to give feedback on the builds. But yeah, generally speaking, I've seen lots of different platforms that have been used, and they're all very similar in the sense that you get a notification there's an update, you install the update, you try it out. There's various means of providing feedback. So they essentially all do the same thing.
How do you make the app compatible both with an iOS and Android?
Well, it's great. That's a great question as you talk to a developer, because depending on the features of the app, certain things require more effort in one operating system or another. So for example, let's say your part of your app is going to have a map, like an integrated Google map, and it's going to give directions, or it's going to use your phone's GPS to find out where you are in the world. Say that's the feature. It can require more effort and time to develop on one platform or another, just depending on the way those platforms are designed. So again, your developer will be able to give you the specific answer on that, depending on what features your app will have.
We have another question. Can you share guidance on using a two-sided marketplace? Is it preferred to only charge one side to use the app, or is it okay to charge both or all?
A great question. So a two-sided marketplace would be any kind of like a matchmaking marketplace where you would have somebody selling something or providing a service, and somebody who's then trying to buy that item or that service. So do you charge the seller or the buyer or both? I mean, it's a great question. There's no one size fits all answer. I've seen it done lots of different ways. Take Upwork, for example, or Fiverr. These are the two biggest freelancing platforms in the world, and they're matchmaking platforms. So freelancers promote their services there, and then somebody hires them. Those platforms, as far as I know, only charge the person providing their service, not the person buying it or finding it there. So they've decided only to charge the one side, the sellers, not the buyers. And I think that's the most common, but it's not. I'm not really an expert on the marketplace equation specifically. So I would say it's a good idea to do research. Whatever type of two-sided marketplace you're intending to create, I would see who the main players are there, if there's any already in that space, and what their model is. You don't have to copy their model, but it'll at least give you a jumping off point to determine, well, if they're really big and they've been around for many years, this is a model that's probably been working for them. And that'll help you answer that question.
I have no other questions. So if anyone has a question, go ahead and drop it into the Q&A so Cameron can address it. Give a moment for people to collect their thoughts. What is he all saying? You must have covered everything.
Yeah, well, again, I mean, these are great questions. There's a lot of factors to consider. And almost 30 of you stuck with us this whole time. So I hope that you've learned some valuable things. Again, feel free to reach out to the SBDC. You can get in touch with me if you ask. If you'd like developer recommendations, it's something I can provide. And I think that this is, it's a valuable thing to consider. It's obviously not right for every business, but I think that having the information now that you do, you'll be able to make a good decision to help your business move forward or decide not to do an app.
And we do have a couple more questions.
Okay.
So can you speak to benefits of building a native app versus a web responsive app service?
So, yeah, and so those who don't really understand the terms, a native app will be developing in Java or Swift, those languages for one of the platforms or the other. And then the mobile responsive one, there's various methods of creating one app that essentially works on both platforms. I mean, pros and cons, obviously, if you can develop one app and you launch it on both platforms, you probably will save money as opposed to developing two native apps. However, in my experience and talking to a lot of developers don't like that approach because developing it in native language is there's less bugs and it's more stable primarily. Developing it on a platform that then lets you launch it on both stores, you can imagine you're relying on that a lot to kind of translate code from Java to Swift or vice versa, and it doesn't always get it right. And so I think a lot of developers that I've talked to, they prefer not to do anything like that. They prefer to develop natively. Now, the app you're making and whatever features it has, it might be a good use case for a kind of a platform that launches it on both, a development language that launches it on both platforms. But some apps, just what they're trying to achieve, will definitely be better with native. So it's a question that'll be answered by the developer you interview and decide to hire. And I would listen closely to what they say as far as their approach to that question, because if they really seem to know what they're talking about, like if they say this app you want is going to be really, really hard to do in a cross-platform coding language, we really recommend native, then I would pay attention to that, because I've seen examples where that was done well and examples where developers thought they could get away with kind of making a cross-platform app and then just having bugs, a lot of bugs that weren't really necessary.
A couple more here. I once used Fiverr to create something, and I found out later that the developer was just changing content, but the look and feel was the same for the other folks. Do you have any feedback on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if the developer was breaking any rules or regulations necessarily. I think developers reuse content, but certainly you could leave your feedback on that developer on Fiverr. That'd probably be the best thing, just to let people know. And if you're displeased with that behavior, leave your feedback. Again, I think the best thing you can do to mitigate any potential problems is just to do some good research on the developers, talk to them before you hire them, talk to multiple developers to get a good sense of who really seems like a reputable and respectable individual or firm to work with.
Do you have any advice for learning Bubble.io and Figma? Do you suggest using other resources instead or in addition to these?
I'm actually not familiar with those. They sound probably like some developer libraries or something. So I'm not a professional developer. I mostly look at app and website development from the point of view of a business strategy and a digital strategy perspective. So there's some developer tools I've never used or heard of. So unfortunately, I don't know those.
Okay, that is it for the wait. It says these, in reference to that, these are low code, no code.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, low code and no code would mean more of a drag and drop interface for building apps. Yeah, I don't have experience with those particularly. So you could read reviews on them, or if you had a developer to talk to, I asked what their thoughts or opinion was on that. But unfortunately, I don't have any information.
What are your thoughts on app web integration? Example, web service Wix with added app integration. Have you used that method and support it? And then they're also looking for examples of subscription app services. Do you have more examples?
Okay. So I'm not familiar with the app Wix integration, unfortunately. I've never heard of that or used that. But apps that use subscription models, well, sure. I mean, some of the biggest ones that come to mind would be like a Netflix or a Disney Plus or something, right? Where you're paying monthly. Amazon Prime is a subscription model. You pay annually. So these are some common examples of that, obviously at the biggest level possible, but a lot of small apps do the same thing. I worked last year with a person creating an app that was like for meditation. And so they had a monthly subscription to use the meditation app. So yeah, it can be used for any types of things. You would just determine the price of the subscription and if it's monthly or annually, of course. And to determine the price, you'd want to do a lot of market research to really understand what people are willing to pay for that type of service.
Okay, question box is empty again. So if anyone else has anything, go ahead and drop it in. Oh, thank you for the question you just answered. Some companies that do can you suggest some companies that do app development in Virginia?
Yeah, you know, what I usually like to do is at least have a brief email exchange to learn a little bit about what you're trying to achieve, because I know a lot of developers, but they have skills in different areas. And so as opposed to sending you a general list of 5 or 10, which wouldn't be as useful, I'd prefer to send you a couple that are much more targeted. So you can just reach out to the help email address, and if you would like, and that can be forwarded to me so I can do that.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Okay, do we have anything else? Let's see. There's one. Could you suggest a best overall calendar when building a website app? Example, I'm iOS, Squarespace offers Google Calendar, I think.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I completely understand the question, but I know if you're integrating a calendar into a website or an app, I do prefer Google. I think Google Calendar is, you know, there's the main two out there, I think, are Google and then Microsoft's Office 365. Google seems for me easier to use and is very easy to integrate on apps or websites. I haven't really used Microsoft's version that much, so I don't know what the pros and cons are compared between the two, but I definitely would say Google is a good choice to use in most cases.
Hey, do we have anything else? What about a short-term app meant as a tool for short purpose for a service one provides?
I guess I'm not quite sure what the question means. A short-term app for.
I'll read it again. What about a short-term app meant as a tool for short purpose for a service one provides?
Yeah, I'm not sure what a tool for short purpose means.
Okay.
But,
Maybe Deborah, if you could elaborate on that, please. To this next one. What is the most advanced app you've done and how long did it take and its scope? Loaded question.
Yeah, most advanced. Wow, that's a fun question. So when we say I've done, what I've usually done has been like a business advisor to a startup founder or business, and working with them and their developers. So I don't make apps, but I advise and I help test. We did a matchmaking service. It was for actually mobile mechanics. And so the idea was you would have a mechanic shop in Richmond or DC or Charlottesville, and they would have someone who could go out and do some jobs at somebody's home or business, like in their driveway or in a parking lot. So the app matched up the fleet of mobile mechanics with someone who had a need, like a starter replacement or a battery replacement or something that could be done off on like a driveway or in a parking lot. So it was a fairly complex system of matchmaking and geolocation as well.
Okay. So Deborah, I'm actually replying to you. The mute is turned on for everyone. So if you could just drop your explanation here or you can email help@virginiasbdc.org. We can actually get your question addressed. Do we have, let's see if we have anything else. Oh, the last question about the scope said thank you. So we'll see if hopefully we can get Deborah addressed. Okay, I think Deborah's going to possibly, oh, here we go. Okay, Deborah, I think you're sending it into the help email, and we'll definitely get you helped out on the help email. All right, do we have anything else? So here you go. Thank you for recommending Google Calendar. I'm trying to integrate appointment-based calendar that me and clients can see. Might you know if Google Calendar sends links to integrate with clients' iOS calendar? So they click it and automatically links to their iOS calendar.
Was the question if I know that if it integrates or not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Might you know if the Google Calendar sends
Yeah.
links to integrate with clients' iOS calendar? So they can click it and automatically links to their iOS calendar.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, I've seen Google Calendar invites come through that says add it to iOS calendar, add it to Google. So I believe it does, but in your specific use case and how you're integrating it, I can't be 100% sure. There's probably some FAQs out there that might dive into the integration a bit more, but I would think if you Google, integrate Google Calendar with iOS calendar, you'll find the instructions on how to do that. So that's probably the step that I would take.
Can you repeat the price range of building an app?
Yeah, it's a hard one to answer, but I'll just say, because it really depends on your features and the scope. But the apps I've worked on in the last 4 or 5 years, the cheapest has been around $1,500 and the most expensive has been around $60,000. So somewhere in there, $60,000 is kind of an outlier, but between $5,000 and $10,000 is very common.
Okay, so Cameron, can you recommend any other upcoming sessions?
Yeah, well, we've got a few planned out over the next couple of months. The next one coming up was on blockchain, which is, I think, a really interesting topic for businesses. That's in about a month from now, and all of the sessions are on the calendar at virginiasbdc.org. So, yeah, I'm doing one a month for the rest of the year. So I encourage you all, if you like to come to each one each month.
Yep. Hopefully, everyone is receiving the marketing emails that go out Monday morning. I think we have all of Cameron's on there right now through June or July, and then we'll add the remaining ones on in the upcoming months. So, and then you should be able to find them also on the website, virginiasbdc.org. If you just go into training webinars, I think it's the link, you'll see them all. You can go ahead and register and put them on your calendars. So. Deborah said, great speaker. So pass that along, Cameron. Thank you. Thank you, Deborah. Let's see. Oh, so here's a question. Is it possible to suggest a boot camp to have someone come and teach the small business owners how to create apps?
That's a great question. Each different center, SBDC center around Virginia, and there's dozens, they can organize those in your area. So that would be a good question to reach out to your local center and ask if they would do an in-person. I have done in-persons. I'm in Central Virginia near Charlottesville, and I have done them in Charlottesville in the past. So it all depends on your center's director and their budget and their availability to do that. But you can ask them.
Definitely. Yeah, hopefully most of you all here are working with an advisor. Like I said, if you don't know how to contact your local center, just send them an email to the help email, and I will get you forwarded to your correct center. Okay, do we have any other questions? We still have some time.
I think it's 2. I think we're at about time.
Okay, I thought we were scheduled a little longer, but that's good. There's lots to do today. So, all right, well, I want to thank everyone. I want to thank you, Cameron. This has been fabulous, as always. And yeah, definitely take a look and get scheduled on those upcoming webinars, everyone. So I want to thank you all for attending today. We've said this before, but you will receive an email with a link to the recording and to the slides. And if you would like to sign up for those upcoming webinars or access recorded webinars, please visit virginiasbdc.org/training. This webinar and other SBDC resources are designed to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. You can sign up for a free and confidential session by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org or via our website. We hope to see you at our upcoming sessions. Take care,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.